Okay, so this actually gets down to simple blocking and tackling at the KYC level, um, where this slide takes actually the KYC documents for the fictitious accounts, and the middle column takes the wires, and then the other one looks at the KYC documents on the William Go account, which was actually open in the Jupiter Banking Center this after the receipt of the wires. So this account was opened after the receipt of $81 million, which is clearly an indication of a red flag. So going to the fictitious accounts, these were absolutely fictitious sham people. They did not exist. Um, and, the New York lawsuit by Bank of Bangladesh kind of outlines, their perspective on it. But all of these applications, all four people looked virtually identical. They had the same income, same opening deposit. The accounts were dormant for the same amount of time. They all had the same management role, and they all received very large wire dollars in dormant consumer accounts from Bangladesh. The identification photos were, a couple of them were actually, I think, former Jupiter Street Banking Center employees, which would be an indicator of, the collusion in the banking center. The signatures didn't match the driver's licenses. There was a control where, to make sure they're not sham accounts, they send out thank you notes to the account holders. Those came back as undeliverable with an insufficient address. Well, the reason that you have these thank you notes is to make sure that it's a real address. So the fact that it came back insufficient was, the whole purpose for sending those out. You also have, the banking center manager lying to, the corporate people about these are longstanding account holders and she was expecting the money. And you had some very, very suspicious circumstances on the physical opening of the account where the banking center manager and another employee at the manager actually went to the casino. One bank, only the manager was allowed in the room in the casino. She claims the four non-existent people were there, but they were non-existent, so she's obviously lying. The other employee was just told to go sit in a restaurant. And when you're looking at the criminal prosecution of the banking center manager, they spend all of their time, or most of the time, on this opening of the fictitious accounts. They spend very little time in her conviction of what happened at the corporate level, which, since they're going after her, I guess I understand why they may have made that tactical decision. But, there is a real issue, and this was raised in her criminal trial. At what point, do other people at Rizal Bank have some culpability? She got convicted for over 50 years in prison. All the charges against everyone else were dismissed.
Wow.
So the second thing, and in my view, actually, in some ways, the more interesting aspect is the middle box, which is the initial wires. Remember, you have these dormant accounts that have $500 in them total, and then they get $81 million. So clearly, the contrast of having dormant consumer accounts getting $81 million. And then they're supposed to be Chinese gamblers, but the money is coming from Bangladesh. There's no KYC nexus at all to Bangladesh. And the wire details themselves are showing these huge infrastructure projects. And, any review of these wires would say, well, we have Chinese gamblers that are getting, $81 million that are referring to very, very specific infrastructure projects that have nothing to do with Chinese gamblers, nothing to do with the Philippines for that matter. Like, why are they coming into the consumer accounts?
Exactly.
And then you go to the far right hand box, which is the money came in and they had screwed up on it as far as the FX transactions. So they had dollar accounts, but they didn't have peso accounts set up. And it was going to take a little while to set up the peso accounts. So the banking center manager is talking to one of the guys from the casinos, and he says, you gotta, you know, change the currency. And so she immediately opens up an account in the name of William Go. And this box, shows all the problems with that, including, there's fake ID, bad signatures. And she's moving, 65 million into this brand new account from the fictitious accounts. Now, Rizal Bank would say all of this is a rogue employee. And, clearly, based on the conviction and the fact that the conviction was upheld on the appeal as well as the facts, no one is defending the banking center manager at all, other than, I guess, her and her lawyer. But you have to remember, all of these facts would have been available the following week when the legal and the risk and this treasurer and everyone else is looking at it. All of this KYC information would have been in the bank's records at the time they were trying to review how to respond to the recall from Bangladesh Bank. And I'm sure that'll be litigated in New York.
Sure. But it lays, I mean, this slide clearly shows, the facts and the way the transactions were taking place and the incidents were occurring.